Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Glasgow Talks. My name is Stuart Patrick. I'm the Chief Executive of Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, and I am your host for this afternoon's session. We have sponsors for the Glasgow Talks series to whom we are eternally grateful, and those are the Adam Smith Business School at the University of Glasgow and Clydesdale Bank and Virgin Money, who have been stalwart supporters of the Glasgow Talks series through the years. Straightforward approach this afternoon. Please feel free to use the chat function if you've got particular things you want to say as we go through the agenda. We will have a Q&A session later on in the hour. But the topic this afternoon is COP26, and unsurprisingly, we have quite a lot of interest in that. It's obviously a huge opportunity for Glasgow to be on the world stage amongst all the international decision makers, and also as an opportunity to progress our own climate ambitions in the context of the world's overall crisis. To ensure that we get the most out of COP26, certainly from a Chamber perspective, we're delighted that the Chamber and the City Council signed an agreement, a strategic partnership agreement on various themes, such as how we engage with the Sustainable Glasgow objectives that the city has set for net zero in 2030, how we engage the business community with COP26, and I know that will be of great interest to a whole host of you this afternoon, how we make international links, and we're already well advanced in organising a fairly substantial inward trade mission for markets all across the world alongside COP26, and what education legacy we get from COP26 so that our school kids in particular get a real flavour of what COP26 means for them. We hope that this is going to maximise opportunities both in the lead up to and during the event, but we are also conscious that the event's going to have it's going to have some disruption. Let's be blunt about that. Very well, of course, it depends how many folks are actually here, but the chances are that with a full face-to-face conference, we are going to have quite a lot of activist activity across the city, and so there's a bit of work between ourselves and the council and other stakeholders on how we manage that. So to help us to understand where we have reached with COP26, knowing that there are some pretty substantial outstanding questions about it, we're delighted to be joined today by Michelle McGinty, who is the head of Glasgow City Council's COP26 team. They are responsible for delivering the strategic communications and operational support required to make COP26 a safe and successful event, and have a close relationship, therefore, with the UK government and the UN in the delivery of the event. We've had a very good relationship with Michelle over the years. She's been in the City Council looking after a number of major events in various roles. She was the head of strategic communications for the Glasgow 2018 European Championships. We remember that fondly. She was a senior advisor in the Council's 2014 Commonwealth Games team, and we remember that very warmly. Michelle has had roles in the past, including head of media for the Glasgow 2018 Youth Olympic Games bid team, which didn't come off, but did lead to some interesting project development in the city. And I suspect Sight Hill would probably not be getting developed at the pace that it now is were it not for that bid. She's also been, for example, protocol manager for the FIG World Gymnastics Championships, which were held in the SSE Hydro in 2015. So she's covered a lot of the exciting ground that has been featuring in Glasgow and through our major events. So we're delighted that Michelle's joining us this afternoon to give us her perspective on COP26. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you for that kind introduction. Hello, everybody. It's always great to be coming to talk to this audience and to be talking about this hugely exciting event, which is probably the most complex and interesting one to date for me, certainly, given the backdrop that we're all facing. So I'm going to swap straight to my slides, which will hopefully share seamlessly. There we are. Is that sharing, everybody?
It is.
Great. Okay. So Stuart has very clearly talked about what our team is responsible for. And I'm just going to move my slides on with some struggle. There we are. So I'm just going to today talk about, give a quick, for anyone who doesn't know, a quick backdrop on what the event is, what we are doing in terms of COVID stocktake planning, and I'll be quick on that because that's ongoing, and I think we are will be at a conclusion soon, but not yet. What we are doing, which is lots, whether or not we're very clear on the model yet, and what we hope to do. So I hope I'll cover some of the areas that are of interest to all of you, and some of the areas that are a priority for the council and partners, and obviously happy to answer lots of questions after. So just as a very quick reminder, COP is delivered by the United Nations as the event owner, UK government as the host, and the council as ourselves as the host city, along with many other partners, including Police Scotland, SEC, and many national agencies. As a quick recap, the blue zone, which is the heart of the negotiations, is obviously at the SEC, and the green zone, which is the more, which is the UK government hosted area of the conference, and much more interactive, and encourages civil society, business, and many other stakeholders to engage, is at the Science Centre, and we are due to have the conference the 1st to the 12th of November, which of course was last year's dates, with a big operational build up beginning 6 weeks ahead. That would be when you start to see evidence of the site beginning to be prepared. So again, whatever the backdrop, this event, as the biggest in the UN ecosystem of meetings now, and undoubtedly the biggest and most important this year in the globe, will be media, civil society groups, activists and protesters, and we're gearing up for a significant number of all of those, certainly in November. And just to put in context, as Stuart said, we've hosted many large mega events, but this is probably the most complex in terms of the security footprint, the nature of the global nature of the attendees, the fact that this will be the biggest gathering of world leaders in the UK to date, a very exciting event, very complex event, and something that will have an impact right across Scotland. So just moving on, just to give you an overview of where we are with the planning for mitigations around COVID. To be clear, it's very, very much in the minds of the UN and the UK government and all partners to have this event in person. There's no doubt that that is the wishes of the parties of COP, and in particular for some of the more vulnerable countries and countries that want to make sure their voices are heard. Conducting the negotiations in person is no doubt more effective. So the ambition is also to still welcome the highest number of world leaders coming to the UK. And at the moment, where all of us as partners are working through different scenarios, different mitigations, as part of a COVID stocktake led by the UK government. Of course, at the heart of that is making sure that the health of the participants and the local community comes first. So nothing changes that this is an event of global importance that has to happen. Climate change doesn't wait. For cities like us, the emphasis now is even more on the importance of green recovery and building resilience post-COVID. We've worked much of our COVID and COP planning in terms of legacy into our Council Renewal Programme, and as well as the Climate Emergency Implementation Plan, which some of you will be familiar with, and the Sustainable Glasgow Partnership. So for now, operational planning continues as normal, with a big focus on public health messaging and, as I say, working through those mitigations. We would hope quite soon to have a clear view of what the model will be like, allowing delegates to plan their trips to Glasgow. Of course, there's many challenges in all of that, but being worked through at every level of government at the moment. So in terms of what we can do, whatever that model ends up being, I thought it'd be useful just to run through a few brief areas of activity that are certainly of priority areas for the council, and these are reflective, I think, of the work that we're doing with partners and all of you. The themes that have come through very strongly in all of our engagement and all of our work to date are around just transition and behaviour change. Just transition is a very important priority for the council leader. We want to make sure that we're upskilling our workforce, and we're planning in the right way to make sure that everybody benefits from the measures that will be needed to get to net zero by 2030, which is undoubtedly an ambitious target. And behaviour change is really coming to the fore now as well, and I'll talk a little bit about how we're using COP as a accelerator for some of our campaigns. So I've mentioned what we're doing across the piece in terms of conference support, and I'll home in on a couple of those. The marketing campaigns which we're using COP as a platform for, how we're furthering the goals of Sustainable Glasgow, our international partnerships, and Stuart talked about the strong response to trade missions, whether virtual or in person. I must say that international partnerships has been a notable area of work which has sped up, not slowed down as a result of postponement. There's certainly no lack of impetus and momentum there. We're starting to look at climate finance in a much more focused way in the council. And for young people, education skills obviously is a big priority for us, along with community engagement in general. So just to concentrate on a couple of areas which are event specific. I know many of you will be familiar with the Get Ready Glasgow brand and that channel of communication. And just to give you a wee update on that, obviously we've gone quite quiet since postponement in summer, while we've looked at new planning assumptions, and now while we get through the COVID stocktake. But we will soon, probably by the end of May, be ready to start talking again in earnest about what the impacts of the COP footprint will be, what that means for your businesses, what that means in terms of opportunities, and what that means for our communities. GetReadyGlasgow.com remains the single source of truth for that kind of information. And as we work through the summer and into the autumn, we'll start to get more and more detailed and granular about the information there. But the strategy is very much, as it always has been, to keep the city moving, keep us open for business. All the more important, of course, as we move into that busy Christmas period when we want to be supporting our hospitality and retail sectors as much as we can. So that planning is continues in earnest, and we'll have more detail on that soon. In terms of, I just wanted to talk about volunteering for a minute, which usually creates a warm glow, and quite rightly. We've been lucky enough to be running the volunteer campaign for COP on behalf of UK government. It launched in January. We were looking for 1,000 entries, and we've had 10,000. So absolutely incredible campaign, and really indicative of the pent-up momentum and enthusiasm and engagement that there is out there in our communities. We've had entries from all over the world. We've had a high number of entries from the Glasgow region, which is what we were hoping for. We've got around 20% of our volunteer entries are new, first-time entries, which is really encouraging. And young people have also shown a really strong interest. So we're really pleased with how that's gone. And we've now got the team have now got the unenviable task of selecting around and about 1,000 volunteers from those entries. And we'll be working with our partners, and please, if anybody is interested in inputting to this, working with our partners to look at other pathways for people who have applied. It's very much part of our legacy planning when we do a large volunteer program like this, to make sure that we move people on to other opportunities and help develop skills and opportunities for the future. We're not just doing the volunteering, we're working with our volunteers to skills is a big focus for us this time. We've been working with SDS, Keep Scotland Beautiful, and other partners to look at how we can do added value training, and we really want this experience for our volunteers to be of great value as they go forward. In terms of marketing campaigns, just very briefly, obviously we want to, as we always do with our major events, promote Glasgow as a world-class major events and conference city. So destination marketing is without doubt a focus for us. The eyes of the globe are truly on us this time. There's no delineation between Commonwealth, European, whatever, the whole globe will be here. So it's a massive opportunity for our People Make Glasgow campaigns. Again, in the same vein, inward investment priorities are very much to the fore, and working with our Invest Glasgow colleagues on that. Using COP to highlight our sustainability targets and ambitions and initiatives around the Sustainable Glasgow Partnership. And we've also created or enhancing our People Make Glasgow Greener sub-brand, which I'll talk a little bit about here. So a number of areas where we're hoping to take real advantage of this unprecedented attention on Glasgow. So in terms of behaviour change, People Make Glasgow Greener is to become our long-term brand, to talk to our communities, our businesses, and our wider citizenry about what can be done to achieve our sustainability targets and how small personal responsibility actions can make a difference. So we're starting with quite simple, in the scheme of things, campaigns around litter dropping, recycling, encouraging people to understand that those things can make a big difference, moving on over time to the more wicked problems around retrofitting and all of the big changes that need to happen to get to our net zero. But this will be the way that we talk to Glaswegians and evoke that civic pride and social responsibility. And you'll see a new community-based litter and recycling campaign starting in the next few weeks under this banner. And just to note that the UK-wide campaign, which UK government are doing, is very much in the same vein. That will be launching soon, Together for Our Planet, that's called, and PMGG will support that. And then in turn, the Race to Zero and Counter Sin campaigns, which are consumer and business focused respectively, are more national and international campaigns. And so we're all talking to different audiences in the same way about how small actions count and inspiring people to act. Now, I mentioned internal partnerships. I'll not go through this in detail, but just to say that it's been extremely busy. My colleague Duncan Booker is overwhelmed by the amount of interest and communication we've had from cities and city partnerships. It really is notable how becoming the COP host opens so many doors and brings interest with real value to talk about climate outcomes, to talk about sustainability projects that we can do together. So we've just as a few examples here, we're working with the Foreign Office on circular economy engagement with European cities. We're a new member of the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance. Our membership of ICLE, which is the grouping of local authorities and regions, has been a real rich theme for us, and we've been able to lead very much on the just transition message there and change some of the messaging that will go to COP through these organisations to further enhance just transition as a theme. Working with the C40 network, which many of you will know is for the big boys, New York, Tokyo, the largest metropolitan areas in the world. It's chaired by the Mayor of LA. We are now a kind of honorary member of C40 and really benefiting from that support network for the future. And we'll be co-hosting a big event on 100 Days to Go in July there. So these are partnerships that Glasgow wouldn't normally be able to get into, and as a result of hosting COP, we're getting really real value from them. And just work with specific cities. I think I've mentioned these before. We've got sustainability partnerships with like-minded cities like Pittsburgh, Santiago, and Berlin. And we're working closely also with our co-host Milan, who of course are hosting the Youth COP this year as well, just before. And just to dwell on young people for a minute, we see them as our climate pioneers and very much at the forefront of the way that we promote behaviour change, and also at the forefront of where we need to be thinking about skills and upskilling for the future. Again, I won't go through this in detail, but just to give a little overview of some of the work that's going on. We're planning a young person citizens panel over the summer. We're working with Milan, as I mentioned. The Conference of Youth, which is a UN endorsed event, will be coming to Glasgow, COVID permitting, during COP or just before COP, working with well-established partners, Glasgow Science Centre, British Council and so on around STEM. There's a big WWF education pack coming and various other bits and pieces there that we're working on. So a real emphasis on making sure that our young people benefit from and can see the relevance of COP being in their city. So in terms of bringing all that together and what we want to do at COP time, all subject to the model that eventually spits out the other side of the COVID stocktake, but this is very much where we hope we will be, is working with partners like the Chamber and many others to bring the city alive at COP time, to bring all of these strategic priorities together, physically if we can, virtually if we maybe end up being a blend, and create some spaces and places where people can get the best out of COP. They might include the city chambers, being a host city zone. Our emphasis there would be to promote and reach out to other cities, city networks, and host those relationships that we've been working on over the last few years, and also to give our communities and cultural sector and other sectors a chance to provide a platform for them. The green zone, we hope, and the green zone, as you might imagine, is just slightly on hold at the moment while that COVID stocktake goes on. And I know there was an absolutely outstanding response to the entries for activity there. We hope to be there too. And also we are working with many other organisations who've come forward looking for venues and spaces to help create that COP City feel right across Glasgow. And we will be working hard also to support local, national and global media to make sure that we showcase the best of Glasgow, its assets, all of our businesses and people. So I'll leave it there, Stuart, and happy to answer any questions.
Great stuff. Thanks very much indeed, Michelle. A couple of wee comments from me actually on that. I've already heard some of the People Make Glasgow Greener campaign. I was sitting down at Go Radio this morning and heard the initial littering message and the littering recycling message. So I can verify that has started. I'm sure others will have heard that too. Now I know that there is an underlying sense of frustration that we can't quite yet say what the model is going to look like. And I heard you say there that by the end of May, we would be feeling more confident that that will have been confirmed. In the interim, during May, we are having another event at the Chamber of Commerce. It's the Focus Forward Conference with the Royal Bank of Scotland, who are, of course, one of the co-sponsors for COP26 on the 13th of May. And we have at that conference Alok Sharma, who is the president of COP, Andrew Griffiths MP, who is UK government's responsible for small business and net zero targets. And we also have Susan Aiken, the leader of the council. So we're hoping that we might have something more positive to say, even by the 13th of May. But I know you're being quite conservative there, Michelle, and thinking about what the timescales may be. And you're probably right. But it's undoubtedly one of the challenges that we face in the organisation. So now it's over to everyone in the audience to give us questions, comments, things you want to raise with with Michelle. I will help if I can to add to any answers, although I know a dash slightly less about the details than Michelle does. So let me not suggest I'm going to be very helpful in that regard. But the questions have come in on chat, so I'm just going to throw them in to start off with, but I'll keep an eye open for any hands being raised. And Brian Fulton has asked, late night economy's biggest weekend of the year is Halloween, which of course is just before COP starts. And as he says, if we are open by then, I really hope we are, we'd hope it would be very busy in Glasgow. Given the conference starts on the Monday after that, do you think the city will be able to ensure it goes ahead as it normally does, i.e. Halloween?
Well, I think it would be a foolish person who didn't let Halloween go ahead, would it not? But yeah, I mean, we're working with our colleagues. This isn't my area, but working with our colleagues across the whole of the autumn and Christmas period to make sure that the work going into COP, both in terms of looking after our delegates and making sure that they can take advantage of the city, and then taking account of all of what we hope will be a very busy city centre. And we've seen the Love Glasgow campaign start this week, which is great to see. So it's very much our ambition to make sure that these key milestones in the city's life are taken into account, that our planning works properly to make sure that we can all benefit from these different parts of the calendar at that point.
Just in terms of obviously it really, again, depends on the model that is finally decided, but let's assume that the model was a full-scale model, and therefore there are going to be a lot of people in the city. What's your general feeling about the level of disruption that we might face in day-to-day operations, when that might start, and what it might look like, and what mitigating factors the actions we might be taking to handle it?
Well, I mean, some of it will be comparable to, we've seen road races in the city, major cycling road races, where there's a very high impact across vast parts of the city for a very particular amount of time. So we've seen messaging around particular days to think about how you travel into the city, to think about how you're doing your logistics if you're a business, and so on. So I think a lot of us are used to seeing very high impact events at certain points in the calendar of a wider mega event. We're also used to seeing a lot of people around the city and using public transport, and for transport models such as those that are used for the Commonwealth Games, for example, when there's games lanes, and it changes the way that our transport infrastructure works. So a lot of this will be quite familiar. It may be higher impact on particular days than others, and we will know when those days are, so we'll be able to make sure that our information is tailored to that. I think the big difference with this, and one that none of us can control, is the element of unpredictability. So while a road race has a massive impact on the entire region of Glasgow, and various motorway junctions have to change, and all of the big things that have to happen, we know exactly when it finishes and exactly when the roads will open again. And usually we get that more or less right. This time, we don't know when somebody might, glue themselves to a train, or have absolute right to protest in a big strategic artery. So the element of unpredictability is absolutely here in a way that we won't have seen before. So our planning and mitigations are a little bit different. Our messaging will be a little bit different, and we will all need to be aware that there will be things that will not be planned and that we can't control. And we, on the flip side of that, as a city, we're very, very clear that activism and protest is part of COP. We absolutely support the UN's view that that is a very valuable part of the process. It puts pressure on the delegations to move ahead and for the negotiations to be meaningful. And the city has won a proud record of activism. So we need to balance those priorities out. But I think that's the difference that we'll see this time, Stuart, to answer your question in rather a long way.
That's very helpful indeed. Thanks very much. Yes, we can sympathise with the unpredictability, given what we saw down in London a couple of summers ago, during the campaign that was being led by Extinction Rebellion. All very entertaining, but clearly lots of challenges involved in how you manage that. I've got a hand up from Tariq Durrani at University of Strathclyde. Tariq, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Michelle, that was a very informative presentation. Would we be able to get copies of your presentation?
Yes, okay. Of course.
Yes.
The second question I had, I'm sorry, I joined her a little late. So the UK government had asked for expressions of interest, and they've received some 4,000 submissions. Is there any indication as to when the decisions would be made on these applications?
Not quite yet, because we're just waiting to see what the model of the event will be, but I'm sure they'll be keen to do that as soon as possible after the stock take is complete. So I would say early summer. I'm at an educated guess, but yes, I know there's a lot of people waiting to hear about that. It's been a fantastic response.
Yeah, the reason I asked that was we, as part of the Rotary movement, have involved or are planning on involving most of the schools, primary schools in Glasgow and West of Scotland, to put together their expressions of what they understand by climate change and environment, and put up posters. And the whole process is going to take a little while. And that's one of the reasons why you're very keen to know when decisions will be taken in terms of developing a project of this sort.
Of course, I can sympathise with that.
I note, Tariq, that Jimmy at Rotary1230.com has also said, has highlighted the role that the Rotary could play as the environment has become the 7th area of focus. So keen to collaborate and share network as appropriate. So there, again, some interest. I've got another well-kent face, Andy Arnold. Haven't spoken to you, Andy, for a wee while. Lovely to meet you. Please come in.
Thank you. I mean, this is really an associated thing, really. I'm assuming that when you have an event like this in Glasgow, we want to have an associated sort of cultural program. Delegates might want to go to concerts and theatre performance in the evenings and so on. And we, like many places, we want to contribute to that and put Glasgow on display as a cultural city. I've been involved in a bit of a debate last few days in the press about the plans for the opening of cultural venues, which would, even under level 0, would not enable us to open simply as we'd be shut if it wasn't changed, albeit what I mean by that is that the plan to have 2 metre social distancing on stage and amongst the audiences, which would reduce our capacities to less than 10%. So luckily, actually, since that debate's taken place, Fiona Hislop tweeted last night that she was going to look at it, but I wonder whether or not there might be any discussion with the government about how we might ensure that we're able to deliver a really exciting cultural programme alongside the main debate and to enable us to do that by having accommodating obviously the health issues are important, but to be able to put on performances in a way that actually works.
Great stuff. Thanks, Andy. Over to you, Michelle.
Yeah, just to speak generally for a minute on the kind of cultural response to COP, I think what the approach we've taken this time as a council, and I think this is an evolving picture which we're really pleased to see, is that in 2014 we ran and organised a cultural programme. It was quite tightly controlled. In 2018 it was a little bit looser, and we collaborated with partners and enabled more than actually ran a cultural programme. This time we've got right to the point where the cultural sector does not need the council to get going and respond to COP. This has been such a vibrant response. So we've taken the approach of enabling and supporting where we can, and Glasgow Life have taken that very much to the fore. So in terms of people who are interested in getting involved or staging or want more information, please either point them to myself or Glasgow Life, and we will help. In terms of what's going to be possible, I mean, obviously take it as read that the council is working with the government every day on these guidances and restrictions for the future across the board, regardless of COP. And I think we're very clear, and one of the things we've made clear is that whatever restrictions are in place at the time, the activity that goes on in the city will align with those. So there won't be exceptional circumstances for general COP activity, but yeah, we're working very hard to make sure that the cultural response can be meaningful and as exciting as it usually and always is in Glasgow.
Robert Burns was asking much the same question about the expectation around social distancing and how we mitigate the impact of that if that were the case. And I take it from what you're saying that we haven't yet had conversations with the government about how you would run events even with social distancing in place. So, for example, with COVID passports or some form of pre-testing, etc., for events. That hasn't as yet been discussed. Would that be accurate?
Well, in terms of COP, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, the principle that whatever regulations are in place in the city at the time, the people who come for COP will be subject to.
Yeah. So if there are COVID passports and there are events being held where we're doing some form of pre-checking, then that would apply to COP26 as well. We're not saying we haven't yet, but
to the wider activity. If there's wider activity in the city, it will be subject to whatever the prevailing regulations or lack of at the time. Yeah.
Thanks very much. I've got another question coming in, and then I see Jimmy's put his hand up, so I'll come to Jimmy in a second. I've got a question here from Andrew Bennett from Art Defo, who teach online sewing courses and create upcycled denim collections. And they're asking the question, what plans Glasgow and Scotland has for tackling textile waste, as it would appear to him that there is no plan, and he's very keen to discuss with interested parties. Now, I know that this is probably more along the lines of what the Sustainable Glasgow action plans are tackling, but Michelle, in terms of making connections that will help to deliver on that kind of point, what's your recommendation?
I think I'll take that away, if that's okay, and find the best person to speak to in the Sustainable Glasgow network to take that forward.
Great. Okay, that's helpful. I'll and help you with that as well, Michelle.
Yeah,
so Andrew,
you're probably as well placed as I am, to be honest, Stuart. But yes,
yeah,
we'll make sure that's
yeah, absolutely. We'll certainly be taking notes from all the questions here for any issues that have been raised by questioners, that we can make connections that will help with that. We sit on the Sustainable Glasgow board and are involved in the various hubs, one of which is the Green Economy Hub, and I can imagine that kind of question being relevant to the work of the Green Economy Hub. So Andrew, we're very keen to make a connection for you, so I'll make sure that we get your details on that. I suppose on a more general question, Suzanne Graham was asking, working within construction industry, it's got a huge COP26 agenda, looking to become more involved in showcasing what we can do in terms of sustainability and net carbon zero. So how do we get more involved? That's a question it's a general question that I think a lot of folks will be having in the back of their minds today. What's your thoughts on that, Michelle?
Well, I mean, Stuart, we were talking about this earlier, and all of these activities that we're thinking about at COP time in particular, and in the run-up, are about making sure that we're supporting the priority sectors, where the sectors that are of most value to the city, and to making sure that then our engagement plans through Invest Glasgow, through the Chamber, through all of our partners, are as meaningful as they can be. And so that might be very much keeping an eye on what we've got planned in terms of forums, whether they be virtual or real, both in the run-up. And we're very much encouraging activity in the run-up to COP, as we've seen so far. We're only a small part of the picture. There'll be many other organisations who have influence on the COP process, and who. So my main message is don't wait for us, but please keep an eye on the activities that we've got planned, certainly with Chamber and others around these areas and sectors.
And we'll certainly again be making sure that all the details of what's possible are coming out through the Chamber as well, in alignment with what the City Council is saying. So we are always keep an eye on our website as well, and good chance that you'll see what the opportunities are there too. Jimmy, do you want to come in?
Stuart, thank you very much. Actually, my question is stimulated by Donald O'Hurley's post in the chat. During the 2014, Glasgow Chamber arranged a whole series of breakfasts, networking events in the Merchant City. Are you planning to do that again?
Yeah, well, gosh, Michelle, and do you want me to answer that one first?
Yes, please.
Specific to us, yes. I think the aim is, yes, to do something of that nature, Jimmy. I mean, we are particularly keen to use the opportunities of the host city, and I want to ask Michelle a little bit about, saying a little bit about what the host city gets in a normal COP, the opportunities that come out from that. But we're particularly keen to target some of the big hitters that will be coming into town, to ensure that we give them a welcome to the city and its business community. So we are hoping to run a series of events that would be focused on promoting Glasgow to those visitors and getting a chance for folks to meet with them. You can imagine all the senior corporates that would be keen to associate with COP26, and we'd certainly be wanting to work with the City Council on utilising a green zone, the City Chambers, or for that matter, even the blue zone where the opportunity arises, in order to promote the city and make those connections with high rollers, the big corporates coming in. So yeah, we're very hopeful to be doing that if the circumstances allow. Michelle, the role of the host city in COP26 and the opportunity that offers us, can you maybe say a wee bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much up to the host city to set its own tone in terms of what it wants to get from COP. This time it's a little less certain what influences an audience will be here. There's a kind of COP has a very particular community in that once you're in it for life. And so many of the same people and the same groups and the same influences are at COP year after year, and therefore you're able to take advantage of a very experienced community, large community of thousands of influencers and people who are very experienced in how to get the most out of COP. So really the approach we've taken is the approach we take to all major events and conferences, which is to look at who's coming, who the influencers are, where the audiences are, and what we can do to augment what we're already doing and make what we're already doing better. So how can we accelerate work around our climate implementation plan? What can we usefully do at COP time that can further that? How do we showcase what Glasgow's doing to be a global leader and to help all of our businesses and people who will make these net zero targets happen get noticed? So I think it's a Glasgow response to COP very much. Every city does it differently. We really want, I mean, Susan Aitken has talked often about COP not being done to the city. It's a massive footprint, whatever way it ends up being, and we need to make sure that our communities and businesses feel that we have taken full advantage. Also, it's worth saying, and this is an intangible, but delegates are also very clear that the backdrop that a host city provides for the negotiations is really important. So what activities going on in the city, what the community response is, what the protest is like, who's there, whose voices are being heard, are really, really important and help push on the negotiations and provide that backdrop. So the welcome that Glasgow will give, the people that will come here to have their voices heard, the way that our communities respond will have an actual tangible effect on the outcome of the negotiations. So there's lots that the host city can contribute and get out of this. And I think we've talked about this before, but trying to do 4 or 5 things really well, rather than panic about the scale of COP and the scale of the people that come, and how we take advantage of that can get a little bit overwhelming. And so we're trying to hone down on our strategic priorities and make sure that we do those things well and support our partners as much as we can.
Great, thanks, Michelle. I've got another question I'll take out the chat, and then I'll come to Donal, who obviously, stimulated by Jimmy being stimulated by him, has put his hand up. So Frank Willoughby is asking, who in GCC or possibly an outside agency is coordinating the marketing and media campaigns for both the People Make Glasgow Greener and the overall marketing campaigns? We'd be keen to carry the message in his Glasgow guide. So who does he talk to if he's wanting to make that connection?
To me, that's fine. Yes, we're doing that in-house. We have our marketing team, luckily, some very experienced marketing people with us in our team who've worked on the European Championships and Commonwealth Games and many other major events that we've had in the city. So yes, get in touch.
Great, excellent. Donal.
Thanks, Stuart, for the introduction of that, and Jimmy for the name check. Michelle, you mentioned in your COP time activity that you would be kind of organising a programme of what will happen over the 2 weeks in Glasgow and that you'd be working with the Chamber on that. That kind of requires, and it links maybe to Tarek's point as well earlier, that it kind of requires a bit of planning and a design for what would be done. When might be a kind of a start for that in terms of kind of putting forward ideas for things that might be done by Glasgow businesses at a Glasgow level as part of COP. How soon might that start, and how soon should we be speaking to people about possibly doing something with you?
Yeah, I think you should be doing that now. You should be thinking about what you would like to do and what you hope you can do, and certainly thinking about what that could, what you could do, whatever happens, if you like, in terms of the audiences that come, or how it pans out. But I think towards the start of the summer, we'll have a clearer idea what spaces are available and what those look like. What we're not quite sure at the moment is who is in what space and what room, and therefore what the right space and room to be it is. And we want to make sure we get that right. So while that might sound a bit vague, I think it's really important to start thinking about your strategy and what you want to do, and not to delay on that. That's very much what we've been doing, thinking about the areas of priority and starting to talk to communities here and abroad about what that activity might look like. And I think one of the benefits of virtual is that we found that engaging already in conversations that might have happened physically in November, whether they do or not, we're just getting on with it. So yeah, as soon as we know the shape that can take physically, we'll be back in touch, but there's nothing to stop you planning at this stage.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. That's perfect. Thanks.
Take myself off mute there. A question, I know this is a common question actually. It's Jackie Malloy at Prince and Princess of Wales Hospice, situated 5 minutes from the blue-green zone with full conference and education suite available for hire. There's your plug, Jackie. I've done that for you. Interested to find out how she can promote the space as a potential venue for smaller associated events. And I know this is an issue for a number of organisations. How do they link in to the whole setup?
Yeah. So hi Jackie. Drop me an email, because what tends to happen is that organisations come to us to say, where could we go in Glasgow? What is available? So certainly we can point people in your direction and make sure that you know you're on the list. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Not at all.
Great stuff. Thanks, Jackie. Another, I think, helpful question, because I know this will be common too, is from Stephen Laurie, who supplies branded clothing and promotional merchandise. He's spotted a distinct shift in the last year towards ensuring all items that they supply have sustainability credentials. Are COP26 tendering for any event merchandise? And if so, how do we access this? And the same, I think that will apply again. Where are there actual business opportunities for organisations as a consequence of COP26, and how do they know about them? Michelle?
Yeah, so the procurement opportunities will be available through the normal public sector channels. So whether that's the UK government portal, or if we are procuring be through our normal council channels, we're subject to the sustainability standards that public sector procurement currently is. There is a sustainability strategy which the UK government are leading on for COP, and certainly yes is the answer to some event collateral being procured. So please keep an eye on those portals. We're doing less procurement as a council as we normally would for an event, because we're not the event organizer, but certainly the production company is now online, and there will be procurement opportunities there. We'll be procuring volunteer collateral, for example, and so on. So yeah, there are some opportunities, and get your alerts onto the public sector portals would be my advice.
And we'll take that thought on board as well, Michelle.
Yeah.
And try and make sure that we are keeping an eye open for that too, so that it comes through our channels as well. And equally, if anyone wants to come to us directly at the chamber, rather than go, it's perfect if you go direct to Michelle, but if you wanted to come to us in the first instance, please feel free, and we'll have the conversations with Michelle as well. So you've got two options there to follow. Then the next question comes from Charlene Sweeney, and was general question about the engagement with young people. What will that look like? What do you think the practical implementation, what's going to be involved for young folks in COP26 through the council?
At COP time or in the lead up? I think both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, principally our schools, without stating the obvious, are the main way in which we'll communicate with our young people. We're, I think I mentioned before, we're just looking at how to improve some of the sustainability engagement and education that we're doing with our kids. We do an awful lot already, but the COP's providing a real opportunity to work with exciting partners, old and new. At COP time, you know, young people will take it into their own hands in many ways, how they engage with COP, but we will make sure that we're opening up channels of communication. I mentioned the COP conference, the youth conference that comes to the COP every year. That will be here with more than 1,000 young people, if that's allowed. So there'll be various different ways in which young people will be able to engage. It's very much encouraged by the UN that delegations of different interested parties come into contact with delegates to make sure that delegates are understanding what voices are being heard and what people are saying, and young people are at the heart of that. So much of it through our schools, receive some more of that. Some of that's about working with partners to increase the amount of material and education that we have, and some of it's about making sure that our young people's voices are heard very strongly.
Great stuff. Thanks very much. Can I bring in Alison McRae? Just a couple of comments about some existing activity that the Chamber's been involved in that I think it'd be quite useful just to share. So if Alison is alert and able to come in just to share that, please do. Yep.
Is that on the education piece?
Actually, it's actually both the education and the wider circular piece as well.
Yeah, so of course, I mean, the team's been working furiously, as Michelle knows, for the last 5 years with Zero Waste Scotland and Glasgow City Council on helping the business community to embrace the opportunity of innovating and future-proofing their business through circular economy business models. And there's been lots of great case study recognition through C40 cities and EMF, Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the European Investment Bank, just to name a few. But the team's continuing to work on that, and obviously has supported the council in its city ambitions around becoming a truly circular city with all stakeholders engaged in their entirety to progress Glasgow's agenda. So that's all really exciting to see that Glasgow's now the first UK city to sign up to ICLEI's Circular Cities Declaration, which we're very proud to be part of, and part of it as a partner. And then on the education side of things, yes, there's work afoot at the moment, I would say, on what a climate change offer could be within the school system through the Developing Young Workforce work that's very much done again in partnership with the council and education department and economic development teams. So watch this space for more on that soon.
Thanks, Alison. Just as I've got time for a couple more questions, so if anyone wants to throw up a question either on chat or with a raise of the hand. In fact, I've just had one in from Frank. Will school engagement extend beyond GCC boundaries? Is it expected to be a regional effort at the very least?
Oh, I'm sure, and there's a big national effort as well through Together for Our Planet in different areas. There's a big competition launched through Blue Peter this week. There's a lot of UK-wide activity going on. The education packs that I've mentioned are all UK-wide as well. So yeah, there's activity at every level.
Great stuff. Thanks very much for that. And I note a comment from Steve Taylor, a friend of the Chamber, to Stephen Laurie, recognising that sustainability credentials in tendering is not always an easy pitch. Lots of options. So he's suggesting checking the SME Climate Hub at smeclimatehub.org, which encourages SMEs in the race to zero as part of COP26 process. So thanks, Steve, for pointing that out. And Barry is saying we're delighted to talk to GCC about enhancing the eco schools and climate ready classroom programs across the city in the run up to COP. So we note that. Any comment on that, Michelle?
Yeah, Barry, we've talked about that, and I hope we're going to get those plans to fruition. And I know that volunteering, we've been working with you as well. So yes, absolutely.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Barry. We're coming to the close, but a kind of final question from me to you, Michelle. You're used to the notion of having an event that doesn't move, that you've got a date and you work to that date, and the deadline quite often acts as a really helpful mechanism for getting things to happen. Just how frustrating is it at the moment that you have everyone plus their granny telling you that COP's not going to happen in November, or COP's not going to happen in a particular fashion? The challenges involved in preparing for this must be quite significant.
Well, of course there are challenges, but a lot doesn't change. I think we're used to responding to major events, and so we know our operational teams are very experienced. We're very lucky to have a big retention of operational expertise in the council who can take all this in their stride, and we've had to do that so much over the last year. Look at the Euros team are now about to deliver an event at really very short notice. So there's a lot of expertise goes into understanding how not to panic when deadlines are moving, and what planning assumptions need to be preserved and what needs to change and how we respond. I think strategically, to be honest, it's been all systems go. Ever since the postponement last summer, nothing has let up in terms of our work around furthering our sustainable policy areas through council, doing consultations on big things like climate implementation plan. We've consulted with thousands of Glasgow citizens virtually on that. As I say, international partnerships and other work has really moved on at a pace. And so I think really it's been quite encouraging that the COP community has kept moving, and we've been part of that. So yes, while there's obviously operational planning challenges, those are the things that we just deal with. The most important thing is that we've just kept moving on, delivering legacy and getting the most out of hosting. Whatever form it takes will be a hugely exciting event.
Out of whose mouth are you expecting that final word that says, this is the model, time to get going? Well,
the UN and the UK government will take that decision and I'm sure inform us all.
Great stuff. Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to draw it to a close now as we're getting close to the hour. Just as a little reminder, before I thank Michelle again for her contribution, just a reminder that although, as Michelle's saying, it may be towards the end of May before we're absolutely sure what the circumstances are, on the 13th of May, we will at least have another opportunity, or you would have another opportunity to just keep a check on what's being said when we have Alok Sharma, Andrew Griffiths and Susan Aitken at our Focus Forward conference with RBS. So please feel free to have a look at the Chamber website to get details on that if you want to just keep in touch. We will obviously put out notifications as soon as that word comes from the UK government and UN, as I'm sure Michelle will be through the council too. But I understand the challenge everyone faces in making their decisions and making their commitments to all the work that needs to get done for COP26. So we're on tenterhooks for that moment. In the meantime, therefore, I shall thank again our sponsors, University of Glasgow's Adam Smith Business School and Clydesdale Bank Virgin Money for their support to Glasgow Talks. Thank you once again to Michelle for taking the time. It's always a pleasure to hear from Michelle and to work with Michelle on major events in the city. And thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon at Glasgow Talks. Our next Glasgow Talks is scheduled for 27th of May. It is with Jeff Ellis of DF Concerts, who produces Transmit and is another of the organisations for whom this pandemic has been, I couldn't say any more bluntly than a nightmare, frankly, in organising the core of his product. Jeff's going to join us on 27th at 2 p.m. to share some of his insights into the event industry, how it is looking ahead to recover from all of that COVID-19 disruption. In the meantime, therefore, I shall say thank you very much. I wish you the rest of the day to be successful for you, and look forward to seeing you at the next Glasgow Chamber event. Thank you very much indeed. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks, everybody.